So, because organisms live in a certain habitat, then they have features that help them to live in that habitat, because each habitat has different biotic and abiotic factors. So deserts are really hot and dry, whereas a rainforest has completely opposite factors. Lots of water, lots of plants available to eat. So organisms living in different habitats have different adaptations which help them to live in that environment. So an adaptation is a feature of an organism that helps it to survive. In its particular habitat. So what we're going to do is have a look through a whole lot of different adaptations and find out how they help that animal or plant to survive. So the first one we have here is colour. So this snake here, hidden in the rocks, it has evolved the adaptation of having brown and black speckled colours, which help it to be camouflaged in its rocky habitat where it lives. So in this case, it helps it to avoid being seen by other organisms, and probably to avoid being seen by its prey as it tries to capture them, because snakes are predators of other animals. They eat other animals. Here we have these skin flaps on this animal here, which is called a sugar glider. And it's related to a possum. It's a type of marsupial. And it's evolved these skin flaps as an adaptation, which help it to glide between trees. So this means that the sugar glider doesn't need to run along the ground, so it doesn't risk being eaten by other predators, and it can save energy by gliding between trees. It doesn't have to climb all the way down and then climb up all the way up the next tree. These two down here, firstly we have this plant, which is a bean plant. Bean plant, and it has the adaptation of these small shoots here which wrap around objects, and they're called tendrils. And tendrils help a plant to grab onto other plants nearby, or we can see here in someone's veggie garden, they've put a stake in the ground. So this helps the plant to climb upwards. And climbing is important for plants because they need to get the most sunlight that they can, which will help them to grow. So climbing up towards the sun helps them reach as much sun as possible. Okay, the next one we have here is a eucalyptus tree. And eucalyptus trees, we can see the leaves here. The leaves are hanging down. And actually, in hot and dry Australian habitats, often plants don't want to get too much sun because their leaves will dry out and the plant will not have enough water to survive. So hanging leaves help it avoid losing water and avoid sunlight in the first place. So all of these four adaptations, colour, gliding, hanging leaves, and tendrils, these are physical parts of the organism. So we call these physical adaptations. Physical adaptations. The next three we can see are a different type of adaptation because they involve an animal doing something and making a choice. So they're part of the animal's behavior, and we call them behavioral adaptations. The first one we can see here is with the emperor penguins. This is in Antarctica. It's so cold in Antarctica that penguins have a behavior where they all bunch together to keep warm. So we can call it grouping or huddling together. And this helps them keep warm in the freezing winters of Antarctica. The next one we have is migration. So there lots of different bird species migrate, which means when the winter is about to come, they fly to a different part of the world where it's still warmer or it's summer even. So often they migrate all the way from the northern hemisphere down to the southern hemisphere, so that they're always in summertime. Migration. And again, this is a way of avoiding the cold of winter. If you fly somewhere warm, then you can avoid the cold up in the northern hemisphere winter. Our next adaptation we have are these kangaroos in Australia. You can see that their behavior is they're sitting underneath a tree in the shade. So they're seeking, or they look for shade. And this helps the kangaroos to avoid the hot sun in summer. And as humans, we generally have the instinct of going to sit in the shade when we're too hot as well. So these adaptations are all behavioral. The last two adaptations we'll look at quickly are a combination of the two. So we can't always define something as black and white. Some adaptations are physical and behavioral at the same time. So here we have a frill-necked lizard, which its physical adaptation is that it has a frill, but then it, as a behavior, it uses the frill as a way of scaring predators. Or to fight with other frill-necked lizards as well. And the last one to look at is one that we see everywhere, which is a spiderweb. So a spiderweb is a result of spiders making silk. So they have a physical adaptation, but then their behavior is that they can make a web as well. And webs are vital for spiders because it helps them to catch prey, which is their food.